Sudan's President Omar al-Bashir last week flew to Juba to meet his South Sudan counterpart Salva Kiir in a landmark visit that opened new doors for cooperation between the two countries. The leaders discussed several issues of mutual interest. The most important outcome of their talks, however, is that the South agreed to immediately resume oil production in a move with enormous economic and political significance to the Sudans. Now, joining us to discuss this important turn in relations between Khartoum and Juba is South Sudan's ambassador here in Nairobi, Mr. Majok Wangdong. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
And a little later on in the program, we will also hear from his Sudan counterpart, Mr. Kamal Ismail Said. But first, let's take a look at the meeting in Juba between President Bashir and President Kiir.
The oil has started to flow. The borders have reopened and traders can now cross over it with their goods. For citizens of the two Sudans, there can now be a reason to be optimistic. Oil is the lifeline of Africa's newest state, South Sudan, but it's also a critical pillar of Sudan's economy. For many months, South Sudan has grappled with near economic collapse. So has Sudan, which has had to cut government spending after it lost much of its oil revenue when the South seceded. The economies of the two countries were thrown into a tailspin following the decision by Juba early last year to shut down the country's 350,000 barrels a day of oil output after a pipeline fee dispute with Khartoum. In between, there have been many unsuccessful attempts to unlock this crippling economic deadlock over oil. But a new chapter on relations between the countries was opened last week when Sudan's President Omar Hassan al-Bashir flew to Juba, where he held talks with his South Sudan counterpart, Salva Kiir.
On ABA, we agreed to implement the establishment of ABA administration. We agreed to the payment of arrears to the administration of ABA, including the share of Republic of South Sudan. This is in addition to encourage the return of citizens to ABA and provision of essential services. We have also agreed to continue discussions on unresolved issues, including formation of ABA Council.
In their discussions, the two leaders agreed to the full and unconditional implementation of the cooperation agreement signed in Addis Ababa, the Ethiopian capital, in September last year. They also agreed to the resumption of oil flow to international markets through Port Sudan. Furthermore, they agreed to the full resumption of the border trade and free movement of people across the borders of the two countries, improving security along their common borders and the continued withdrawal of forces as required by the agreement.
The reason for this agreement is to eliminate all restrictions in different areas, which was also the reason behind the formation of a joint high committee, so that people will begin to see a new chapter in our relations which will improve with each day. We're expecting Salva Kiir to visit Khartoum soon to assure people that this new relationship has begun and will not stop or regress.
Both countries have also withdrawn the troops from the border areas under an African Union brokered deal in September. The laying down of a demilitarized zone along that common border stalled due to mutual mistrust, but it was finally put in place in March. Following the talks, Kiir and Bashir pledged to bring an end to conflicts over the disputed regions along their still volatile frontier. It is likely that this landmark meeting between the two leaders will be followed by more official visits on both sides.
Well, earlier we spoke with Sudan's ambassador to Kenya, Mr. Kamal Ismail Said. Here's what he said. Your Excellency, thank you very much for your time. Now, many have termed the visit to Juba by President Bashir last week as historic. Can you tell us what was the significance of that visit?
As far as the visit of His Excellency President Bashir to Juba, it was a culmination of several events. As you know, in last September we have signed 9 agreements. There was also some meetings and agreements in security and defense issues in Addis Ababa. And all these agreements were a process in the whole peace process with South Sudan. And the visit of the president to South Sudan was the peak of that process, and this has opened the road for all those agreements to be applied practically.
How has the visit, though, been received by both the Republic of South Sudan and the Republic of Sudan?
Well, officially, definitely it was welcomed by both sides. Both sides will have a very positive attitude towards that visit. This has been expressed in the way they have received the president and his delegations in the South. And as far as the public opinion is concerned, most people were very glad that this visit has taken place. And they have a high expectation that this will result in a very positive actions regarding the relations between the two countries in all areas, whether political, security, or economic aspects.
Now, the resumption of oil through Sudan was a major breakthrough for both countries. Now, are there any special conditions or terms on which South Sudan agreed to resume that oil production or the use of Sudan's infrastructure?
Well, all the conditions and terms of exporting oils through our pipelines has been agreed upon in Addis Ababa. So it is already there. The conditions, the fees, and all technicalities required for oil to flow. All that has been taken care of in the oil agreement several months ago. And now what is good what is important in this visit is that to put that in practice.
How is the resumption of oil production, though, going to impact Sudan's economy?
The resumption of oil pumping will affect both countries. Definitely for Juba it is important because it represents about 95% of its oil exports and income. To us also, the fees of that pumping or that pipeline also will represent a new additional revenue for the budget. We expect it to be about $2 million plus per day, depending about the quantity of the oil pump. So you can imagine a country with limited resources to inject $2 million plus daily. That will really have a very positive effect in all the economy, in our budget, in the inflation, and so on and so forth.
The last year must have been difficult for both countries there, with the shutting down of the oil production. How massively was Sudan's economy hit by the loss of that revenue?
By shutting the pipelines, we have been hit twice. First, because we used to get 50% of that oil before the agreement. So the agreement deduct 50% of oil produced in the South from our budget. And also by the fact that they shut down the pipeline, we lost another 30%, I guess. So what we really have lost, our economy has lost about more than 70% of its exports at once in a very abrupt manner. So that by all means, an economy to lose about 50% from its national budget and more than 70% of its exports, that economy should collapse very quickly. Nonetheless, we managed to survive. And I said it is a sort of economic miracle, because no country can lose 90% of its oil revenues and 50 or 40% of its budget revenue and still survive. But we did it, and this is what I call it a miracle.
How has Sudan, though, been financing its budget during that year?
See, the problem is that what is not clear for several people, or many people, or many organizations, that Sudan has a diversified sort of economy. It's not just a one single product economy. So it has its agricultural sector, industrial sector, tourism sector, energy sector. So the fact that our economy is very diversified, we have more than source of revenue, so that helped a lot. And that entices us and encourages us to develop the other sectors, particularly agriculture. And we managed to compensate that great loss. But the problem is that that loss has caused us some difficulties and problems. We have exerted more effort to compensate that. In addition to that, our people were very understanding, and they understand the situations, and they were very cooperative and patient in order for us to pass that critical point. So it is a combination of our effort, economic effort, as well as the patience and understanding of our people that helps us to pass this, to bridge this gap peacefully.
Sudan's economy, as you say, there has diversified as a result of the lessons it's learned through the oil shutdown. Which areas is Sudan looking at the moment?
Several. We are looking at our agricultural sector, we are looking at our mining sector, we are looking at our energy sector, irrigation sector, name it. We have several uncountable number of sectors you can use as economic product in order to increase our economic well-being. See, we used to be a net gold importer. Now we are a net gold exporter. We used to be a net food importer. Now we are a net food exporter. We used to be a cement importer. Now we are a cement exporter. So we managed to shift and change a lot of activities, our activities. And that have changed our trade structure dramatically.
When you look at the meeting between President Bashir and President Salva Kiir in Juba last week, is that the beginning of a complete normalization of relations between Sudan and South Sudan?
Yes, it is. It is. As a matter of fact, the nature of things that the relation between two neighboring countries should be good and better. It should be normal. As a matter of fact, it should be excellent. And in our policy and foreign policy, we consider South as neighbor plus. We consider them as the most favored nation, if you may say. Because we were together, we have a lot of things together in common. We have social contacts, social relations. We have several things together. So that should be expressed in our political actions as well as in our economic activities.
What is the current situation, though, in particular in areas like Hejlij and in Abyei itself?
Well, in Hejlij now it is safe, no problem. We took it back and it is secure. Oil is being pumped from there, no difficulty. As far as Abyei is concerned, also there is a joint committee has been formed by the two parties, the two countries. Now it is formed, they are working, and there is a United Nations forces there to maintain peace and order. And I think as up to now, peace and order is maintained in that area, waiting for the committee to find a last solution for the issue altogether.
President Bashir was emphatic that the two countries, Sudan and South Sudan, will not go back to war, even though last year they came close to the brink of war. Would you say, though, that the era of war between the two countries is completely over?
I guess so, because I think at last we discovered that peace is better than war, and exchanging of goods and services is better than exchanging bullets. So both sides has come to that wisdom. And I think there is very little probability that we may engage in war again.
Finally, Your Excellency, the roadmap for Sudan, South Sudan, now that the two presidents have met and have discussed issues at length, what is that roadmap now for Sudan, South Sudan? What next for Sudan, South Sudan relations?
Next is that we will open roads, we will open transportations, we will open everything. We have an agreement, it's called Four Freedoms, people of both countries can move back and forth freely. They can work, settle, and invest as they wish. So that will bring us to almost the same situation we have had before the separation. Although each country is sovereign, have its sovereignty, its borders, its whatever, but within the society, people will move back and forth freely. Things will come to normal. We'll export goods and services, and people will exchange all interests. So I think that will help to flourish at least the border area and then the whole countries as well. You can imagine how much a ton of cement will cost to transport it from Mombasa to Juba or to Malakal. It will cost about $300, while it's going to cost only $30 from Sudan. So you can see the difference. And this is the reality of things. You cannot stand against the market forces, against the social forces. So all this friction was at the political level as such, but it has not been deeply rooted within the community or the society and so on and so forth. So I believe things will come right back to normal, and we have a very good prospect to proceed forward. We are a sort of very quiet, integrated type of economies. We will continue doing that, and I think working together, having our historical background, there is a very good future prospect for our both countries to develop very fast.
All right, Your Excellency, thank you very much.
Yeah, okay.
Breaking news, global trends. CCTV News brings you stories with the different aspects of Africa in the international content. With our reporters across Africa and all over the world, we'll tell you about the real Africa and how it impacts the world. Africa Live, every day, only on CCTV News. Culture Express. See the world in color.
All right, President Bashir and President Salva Kiir met in Juba last week to tell us more about this meeting and relations between Sudan and South Sudan is South Sudan's ambassador here in Nairobi, Mr. Majok Guangdong. Welcome again to the program. Now, President Bashir and President Salva Kiir met in Juba last week. This has been termed as a historic situation. What is the significance of that visit to Juba?
The visit of President Bashir was very positive and significant because it is the first visit after the independence of South Sudan and after the signing of cooperation agreement between the two countries. Definitely, it shows that the two leaders are committed to the agreement. They are committed to normalization of relations. They are committed to economic and security cooperation. They are committed to the four freedoms that were signed for the free movement of citizens between the two countries, free ownership, and free trade between the two countries. So it is indeed a significant and a very positive aspect for visit of al-Bashir to Juba. He was welcomed by his counterpart, President Salva Kiir Mayardit, and it was welcomed by all the people in Juba as a new page to be opened for cooperation between the two countries.
The two leaders had agreed on certain issues like resumption of trade movement of the borders. What is the situation in your country at the moment?
Well, I think since a week ago, the oil resumption has begun. The Minister of Petroleum of the Republic of South Sudan, Honorable Stephen Dio, opened the oil last week to the international market through the pipeline to Sudan, Post-shutdown. We are also, the borders are open. People are moving freely, people and goods are moving. The The four freedom have already been established. There have been withdrawal of troops from both borders into 10 kilometers inside each territory to create a demilitarized zone which will be patrolled by the AU and international community to observe the movement of the people between the two countries. We have also the two central banks governors has met, and the ministers concerned, the counterpart during the visit of President Bashir to Juba, they also met.
All right.
In order to streamline and to resume the cooperation that is that will enhance the relationship between the two countries.
Well, the oil revenues, though, had accounted for about 98% of South Sudan's revenue. How adversely was the economy hampered by that lack of oil?
Well, definitely, you know, depending on one commodity, sometimes has some consequences. Definitely, we have had some shortages we scaled down our services at the time, and but we were able to manage. So many people were surprised because they thought that the South was going to, the economy was going to collapse, but that even gave us more strength by looking at other sources of income, like, for example, to strengthen our revenue collection, to also allow our people to produce internally rather than depending on imports. So this even now with oil coming back, we are still determined that the alternatives, the other sources to make our economy multiply is a top priority. For example,
what are those alternatives?
Agriculture. We must invest in agriculture for food security, for internal satisfaction as well as external, export. We're also working on other sources. We have the largest animal production on the continent. Domestic animal, cows, goats, and sheep. We also have the largest wildlife in the region, which is bigger than Serengeti and Masai Mara combined. We have the fisheries resource, which is full of all the tributaries to the Nile. So we are now looking at oil will be only to really generate the other sector of the economy, like agriculture, like infrastructure development, but we are really looking for diversity of our economy.
How long, though, is it going to take for South Sudan to reach the pre-shutdown production levels of its oil?
Well, this is a technical question, but I believe as soon as possible we can imagine, there's 16 months, which is amount to almost 4 million barrels, which was during the shortages. The shutting down of the oil. I believe that within 3 to 6 months, this oil will be able to go to the international market. And I think our government is ready now to deliver services to our people, because our people have been very resilient, being patient during all this time, because they understand that the decision that was made by the leadership of the country was a correct decision, and therefore they were patient until now we are able to reach an agreement that will be for the benefit of both countries.
All right. During the time of the oil shutdown, South Sudan had been looking at alternative routes to export its oil, and now that it is exporting that oil through Sudan, what happens to the alternative projects that South Sudan was looking at?
Well, I think the diversifying of our export of the oil will continue, because even without shutdown of the oil last year, we're also going to look for alternative, because our production is increasing, and I believe by 2016-17 we may reach over a million barrels a day. So that thing cannot just depend on one route. We must diversify. We are committed to the other routes, especially the Lama projects, which is between Kenya, South Sudan, and Ethiopia, which is very vital and top priority for our government. We'll also be looking for other routes, in order to export our oil to the outside world.
All right. There were, though, some other post-accession issues that were still being ironed out. What are the key post-accession issues that are still outstanding, that still need to be resolved between South Sudan and Sudan?
Well, the most important aspect is that both leaders have agreed for a peaceful resolution of all the conflict, which means that to avoid any military confrontation. Definitely there are outstanding issues. One of them is ABA. In the meeting in Juba, both leaders have agreed for the formation of the ABA administration, and they also agreed for dialogue over the final status of ABA. I hope that sooner than later the people of ABA will be allowed to conduct their referendum so that they ascertain their political future. Either they belong to the South or belong to the Republic of Sudan. Equally, the question of SPLM North, we have detached ourselves from the rest. We separated since the independence of South Sudan. The SPLM proper remain in South Sudan as the ruling party, and the SPLM North have gone to the Republic of Sudan. But equally, what is important also is that the two leaders have agreed. Government of Sudan now wanted peace with the rebels in the SPLM North and in Darfur. And our leadership is willing to help in that endeavor because we know that peace in the Sudan will have good repercussion in South Sudan and vice versa. So I think we are ready to start a very good beginning, and I hope that this will continue to the end.
Last year, though, there was a war broke out over Bantu. What is the situation now in Bantu?
Well, the situation now in Bantu, of course, the last one was the war in Hilit, and since our forces withdrew from Hilit, we, on the order of our leadership, after the appeal of the international community, and also as a good gesture to normalize the situation, we have moved back to where we were before, and I believe that both countries have learned a lesson that will only refer to peace and peaceful negotiation, so that we are able to resolve the outstanding issue between the two countries.
Mid last year, though, South Sudan and Sudan also came close to the brink of war. Now, President Bashir has said there will be no more war between the two countries. Would you say that the era of war between South Sudan and Sudan is now a thing of the past?
These are hope, and we are always very positive about that. I hope that this is there is no going to be any war between the two countries. I hope there is going to be enhancement of the cooperation between the two countries. And I hope that if there's any issue that comes up in the future would be resolved through peaceful means.
All right, Ambassador Majok Wangdong joining us here on the program. Thank you very much for your insights from South Sudan today. Well, that has been Ambassador Majok Wangdong, the Ambassador of South Sudan to Kenya, joining us here in studio in Nairobi. This has been Talk Africa from Nairobi. I'm Beatrice Marshall. Bye-bye.
It could be mistaken for fingerprint identification at immigration, but it's one of the latest inventions to diagnose malaria.
Malaria is a very old disease. According to record, 3,000 years ago in Egypt, they found malaria.
And you realize a normal red blood cell is biconcave in shape,